2003 was a great year. Pirates of the Caribbean premiered. In the digital world, the MySpace website was created, and meanwhile, in WWE, tensions were rising. Fans increasingly supported their favorite brand between Raw and SmackDown, while the Attitude Era had already passed. The Ruthless Aggression era was starting to fully take shape, with a new generation of talent emerging. Shout out to Miguel Vasquez for his comment. Remember to leave a comment and I'll give you a shout out in the next video. The goal is 1,000 likes. Once we hit it, I'll upload the next video. Just like the video, it's free and helps you get the next one sooner. Shout out to Vasquez, your comment. Remember to comment and I'll give you a shout out in the next one. It doesn't cost you anything in the next video. Shout out to Vasquez. Leave your comment, remember to comment, and I'll give a shout out to the fastest one in the next video. It doesn't cost anything. Shout out to Vasquez for his comment. Remember to comment. I'll be Leonard. Did you know this? Maybe here Leonard thought winning would make him want revenge on the former Extreme Championship Wrestling boss, taking the title from his newest client. However, he would have to defeat 29 other men in the Royal Rumble, a tough task given the quality of the wrestlers in the match. That said, in the end, the Beast proved to be too much for all of them. He ended up winning the Rumble after finally eliminating The Undertaker, thus confirming that he faced him. As for the other titles, it was still unknown what would happen because Raw seemed to be losing the brand battle. Eric Bischoff decided to bring back Stone Cold to give his show a boost. Yes, after almost a year, the situation that led to Austin's departure had cooled down. Enough so that he could be put to work again with Vince McMahon, and a return to the company could be negotiated. However, that wasn't the only big comeback during this month. On SmackDown, to get into Hulk Hogan's head, the boss brought in the man who had beaten him at last year's WrestleMania, The Rock, so they could have the rematch of the century at No Way Out on February 23rd. Fans were excited leading up to that night, eager for The Rock versus Hogan 2 and Stone Cold's return. Before these matches at the event, Brock Lesnar and Chris Benoit teamed up to defeat Team Angle in a handicap match, and Triple H would put an end to Scott Steiner's brief run once and for all. Then, while everyone in attendance watched as Eric Bischoff made his way down to the ring, they knew it was only a matter of time before that glass shattered and their hero returned. And when he did, the roof almost came off the place as Austin proceeded to come out and give the Raw general manager a massive beating, announcing that he was back. However, this was not the main event of the night, because after that, The Rock versus Hogan took place, proving that sequels are never as good, since after 12 minutes, The Rock would take the victory again. Of course, the victory was achieved partly with the help of a distraction from Vince McMahon, something that set up his eventual match with Houston at WrestleMania a month later. However, before WrestleMania, the rest of the card would take shape. In the next, after having a mini rivalry with Hurricane, The Rock would challenge Stone Cold to one more showdown at the Showcase of the Immortals. Additionally, Booker T became the top contender for Triple H's World Heavyweight Championship. Although the story of this feud was full of controversy, and that's because of the racial undertones throughout this whole feud. However, when WrestleMania 19 came around on March 30th, Triple H would leave with the same belt he entered with after pinning his opponent clean in the middle of the ring. Even so, there were happy moments that can be taken from what is perhaps the most underrated WrestleMania of all time. The Undertaker extended his streak to 11-0 by defeating Big Show and A-Train in a handicap match. But Shawn Michaels and Chris Jericho would have a 5-star classic that saw the Heartbreak Kid come out victorious in the end. In addition to that, the titles would change hands when Trish Stratus defeated the champion Victoria and also Jazz to become the new women's champion. And Shelton Benjamin and Charlie Haas would become the WWE Tag Team Champions after winning a triple threat match. Then in a street fight, after Roddy Piper made a surprise return, Hulk Hogan would defeat Vince McMahon. All before Steve Austin and The Rock had one more match, ending with The Rock getting the victory and sending the Rattlesnake into retirement. Yes, no one knew then, but with injuries catching up, Austin had chosen this as his retirement match. Of course, he wasn't the only one coming into this show injured, as in the weeks leading up to the main event. A serious neck injury almost forced Kurt Angle to vacate the title before he could even step into the ring. However, Angle would push himself enough to face Lesnar for the title of end of this match. Even though Brock Lesnar got the victory and became the new champion, it would be his health that worried people when a failed shooting star press almost killed him in the middle of the ring. Now, with both men from this last match injured and out of action, WWE would have to make a change, making SmackDown focus not only on the saga of Vince McMahon and the mysterious Mr. America, but also on introducing the one-legged wrestler Sash Gowen. Meanwhile, on Raw, with Steve Austin now retired from competition in the ring, he would take on a new role as the commissioner of that show, someone put in place to counteract the antics of the villain Eric Bicho. But the Red Brand had another trick up its sleeve, because the night after WrestleMania, as The Rock celebrated his win over his top rival, Goldberg made his WWE debut and immediately challenged the People's Champion. At Backlash on April 27, The Rock would face Goldberg in the main event, with the former World Championship Wrestling star starting his career strong, demolishing his opponent and sending him back to Hollywood. Of course, that wasn't the only notable thing that happened at this event, as Kane and Rob Van Dam retained their World Tag Team titles. Against the Dudley Boys, Jazz would defeat Trish to become the new women's champion, and the rise of John Cena to become the rockstar face of the company. It began when he challenged the returning Brock Lesnar for the WWE title. Though Brock won, Cena's rise continued. At Judgment Day on May 18th, just a month later, he scored a big win by teaming up with the FBI to defeat Chris Benoit, Rhino, and Spanky. Also, Eddie Guerrero and Tajiri became WWE Tag Team Champions. After defeating Shelton Benjamin and Charlie Haas, Christian would win a Battle Royal for the newly reinstated Intercontinental title. Torrie Wilson and Sable had a bikini challenge, while Mr. America beat Roddy Piper in a singles match. Then, in the main event, each world champion would retain, when Kevin Nash could only defeat Triple H by disqualification, and Brock Lesnar managed to beat Big Show in a street chair match. Naturally, the game knew he would eventually have to face him. Before the company made a trip to the United Kingdom for Insurrection, on June 7, he began to gather his troops behind him. Since Evolution, a group that had been forming for a few months before this, began to fully establish itself on the Red Brand. So when Bad Blood arrived just a week later, on June 15, two of the group's members, Ric Flair and Randy Orton, would work together to give Flair a count-out victory over Shawn Michaels. Then, after that, even though Triple H was locked inside Hell in a Cell while facing Kevin Nash, once again they would be in his corner anyway and would help motivate him to keep the World Heavyweight title around his waist. At the end of the night, in another match, Chris Jericho and Goldberg had an incredible match, taking advantage of a real-life fight they had years before while working for World Championship Wrestling. Additionally, La Resistance, and Booker T gained momentum as the new World Tag Team Champions and Intercontinental Champion. Meanwhile, Scott Steiner's descent to the mid-card continued with a victory over Test, which earned him the managerial services of Stacy Keibler. And since this event was only for Raw, the following month, SmackDown would have its Vengeance event exclusive to the Blue brand, and it would feature a match card. Eddie Guerrero beat Chris Benoit to win the newly reintroduced United States Championship. As a challenge, John Cena's rise would continue with an impressive performance against The Undertaker. And a truly bizarre encounter took place when Vince McMahon, 58 years old, having just rid the company of Mr. America, defeated Zach Gowen, a one-legged wrestler, in a singles match. That being said, the real reason people tuned into this show was for the main event, Since after undergoing successful neck surgery and returning to the ring in record time, Kurt Angle would get his rematch with Brock Lesnar as part of a triple threat match that also included Big Show. But why was Big Show added to this match? That's because after he and Brock Lesnar broke the ring in a match weeks earlier, it was decided he deserved another title shot. In the end, it would be the Olympic hero who would come out victorious in this fourth reign as champion. Now, would that be the end of his rivalry with Lesnar? Of course not. When SummerSlam came on August 24th, the two would meet again, this time without the involvement of Big Show. And that night, Angle would prove to be the best, as after just over 21 minutes, he made the Beast submit with an Angle lock. Elsewhere on the show, Kane had been forced to unmask a few weeks earlier after losing a match for the world title, Perfect Weight. What would happen when his now former partner Rob Van Dam faced the Big Red Machine, unleashing all his rage here and showing the fan base that he would once again be a force to be reckoned with? Then, Shane McMahon would make his return to the ring when he defeated Eric Bischoff, all before the main event saw the 6 top Raw superstars fight for the World Heavyweight title inside the Elimination Chamber. Yes, Triple H would have to defend here against Shawn Michaels, Kevin Nash, Chris Jericho, and Goldberg. Although he had Evolution ally Randy Orton to help, most fans still expected this to be Goldberg's moment to reach the top. However, all of Goldberg's momentum was stopped by the Reign of Terror, when after just over 19 minutes, he would be the last man eliminated by the game. Looking at this, Goldberg clearly deserved to win, but back then, whatever Triple H wanted, Triple H got. Fortunately, on SmackDown, the WWE title was going through a much better time, as on the September 18 episode of the Blue brand. Kurt Angle and Brock Lesnar would face each other again in an Iron Man match, one of the best matches ever broadcast on free television. The Beast finally became SmackDown's new leader after a 5-4 win. Then, on September 21, it would be Raw's turn when they would hold the event. Match card: the Dudley Boys would win the World Tag Team titles from La Resistance. Randy Orton would get a big win over Shawn Michaels and Kane. He kept his dominance on the Red Brand's roster by beating Shane McMahon in a last man standing match. Everyone was waiting for the main event where Goldberg and Triple H would finally face each other. But even though Goldberg would win this match to become the World Heavyweight Champion and temporarily put a pause to the Reign of Terror, many felt that Goldberg's time had already passed, and even though it seemed almost impossible to ruin Bill Goldberg, WWE seems to have found a way to do it. So, while he continued his rivalry with Evolution on Raw, a group that was now even stronger after Batista returned from an injury, SmackDown took over on October 19th by hosting No Mercy, where the Blue brand proved superior. After Big Show won the United States title from Eddie Guerrero, John Cena's popularity soared once again when he pushed Garangle to the limit and Vince McMahon defeated his daughter Stephanie, sending her packing from her role as SmackDown General Manager just a few days before her wedding. In real life, with Triple H, the main event would feature a brutal biker chain match that pitted the WWE Champion, Brock Lesnar, against the #1 contender, the WWE. Over the course of the next 24 minutes, the two would continue their feud exactly where they left off the previous year, beating each other to the ground. Finally, the Beast, aided by his new ally Vince McMahon, overcame his opponent and kept the title. Then, to make things even better, after this, the champion's time would become much easier since Paul Heyman replaced Stephanie McMahon as the general manager of SmackDown. And quickly reconciling with his former client, it was proposed that The Undertaker wouldn't get a rematch. However, The Undertaker would get his way and earn a big match at Survivor Series on November 16, but there he would face Vince McMahon himself in a Buried Alive match. Before that happened, the card would see Molly Holly retain the women's title in a match against Lita. The Basham brothers would do the same with the WWE Tag Team titles when they faced the Guerreros. And Kane would put an end to his rivalry with Shane McMahon once and for all when he defeated him in an ambulance match. Then, the battle for control of Raw would take place, when Team Eric Bischoff with Randy Orton, Chris Jericho, Christian McHenry, and Scott Steiner faced Team Steve Austin. With this last team featuring Shawn Michaels, Booker T, Rob Van Dam, and the Dudley Boys, the star of this match would turn out to be the Heartbreak Kid when he ended up being the only man left on his side. He couldn't overcome the odds because after eliminating Christian and Chris Jericho on his own, a moment of interference from Batista allowed Randy Orton to get the winning 3 count. But even though Austin was now out of his role as commissioner of the Red Brand, he still offered his thanks to Shawn Michaels for the effort he gave. While the two shared a beer backstage, The Undertaker and Vince McMahon headed to the ring for their showdown, supposedly with the Buried Alive match. Since this match was a specialty for Taker, most people expected him to win. That's why it was a surprise when, after a tough battle that lasted just under 12 minutes, and with the boss bleeding profusely from his forehead after taking a missed chair shot, at first Kane would appear, who would knock out his brother and leave him helpless to be buried underground. Although The Undertaker left WWE for several months, there were still other stars ready to step up and keep things moving. Because in the main event of the night, which followed immediately after this, Goldberg and Triple H, both former World Championship Wrestling stars, faced off again. Despite constant Evolution interference, they retained their world title. Heavyweight. At the end of the night, yes, now only a few fans felt that maybe, just maybe, the Reign of Terror was over for good. But what they didn't realize was that at the last Raw exclusive event of the year, Armageddon, on December 14th, the game would have one last shot at the gold. But this time, an extra obstacle was added when Kane was included, turning it into a triple threat match. Of course, before that, the rest of Evolution would also be in title matches on the card, as Randy Orton was challenging Rob Van Dam for the Intercontinental title. Batista and Ric Flair were taking part in a tag team match to determine the new Raw Tag Team Champions. That was an Animals Only match that night, as he also faced Shawn Michaels earlier. Despite losing this match, he would eventually have the gold around his waist. In the same way, the same could be said about Flair and Orton, since as the main event approached, it seemed like the group was going to achieve a complete victory. So, with all the pressure on him, Triple H did everything he could to regain his title in the World Heavyweight Championship match. He finally managed to do it after some timely interference from the rest of his partners in crime cleared the way for him. That's right, like last year, this one would also end with Triple H on top and his reign of terror. The only difference here was that now the rest of Evolution also had their own titles, making them without a doubt the most important force. The next year, things get even better. The fans start to get bored of Triple H, Chris, Jericho, Benoit, and Guerrero started to get better work and more opportunities. See you in 2004.